Alright. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Start with our dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi fi kulli lahzatin abada ala ni'amillahi wa afdalihi. Allahumma atina min ladunka rahma wa alimna min ladunka ilma. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. نويت تعلم وتعليم المذكر وتذكير نافع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقرب وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف نناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه ونقرأه وما نقرأه في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعده فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم يا مقاليد الأمور كلها بيده وإليه يرجع الأمور كلها يا فتاح يا عالم يا فتاح يا عالم يا فتاح يا عالم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وسد لساني واهد قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا وارزقنا كمال الفتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية والغنى والنصر والحفظ والنفع والانتفاع وخيرات الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نوينا بلسنا وهذا التسير مسيرة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Put in your intentions, Okay, we'll continue with our sirah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Alright, so we were in the previous lesson, we were speaking about Sayyidah Khadijah. Right, we went into a bit of her life right before she met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, we went into the story whereby she sent Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to work for her, right, to bring her trading right overseas. And she sends her slave boy, right? Maisara is a boy's name, right? It's not a girl name, if in case you're wondering, right? It's actually a boy's name. Our community got it wrong, right? So she sent her slave boy Maisara after to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he came back with an amazing report. Alright. So now, right, this is where I stopped, right? I stopped here. So now, where did I stop? Oh yes, and she had a dream, right, about the sun falling into her backyard. Right, and when she went to her cousin Barakah, right, we mentioned that Sayyidah Khadijah, she was a student of her cousin. And her cousin was someone who was very knowledgeable about the books, right, of the past. He knew all about the much awaited prophet, the last prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so she was an avid student of her cousin who was a scholar, right, of the books of the past. Right, she was can you point the fan somewhere else? Sorry, yeah, not the fan. Because it bothers the recording. Yeah, it just makes it sound. Alright, so So her cousin Waraqah, so we know that after she got widowed twice, right, she busied herself with business, whereby she had very honest business dealings, right, and she was in fact of the biggest businesses in Mecca at that time, and she was the head of it. She was the CEO of it, right? So, and there were many men who were working under her, but so she never really, to say that she's a working woman. Some people they bring forth, right, saying that saying that Khadijah is a working woman, right? She is a working woman who never left the house. She actually never left the house, right? So she had children underneath. She had children with her at home. Right, not to say that working woman is anything wrong whatsoever. I work, really. So, like in Singapore context, you have to work, right? Most of us, we do have to work to make ends meet, right? But on the context of, it's only my personal opinion, on the context of if you have children and if your husband is working, is earning enough, right? If that's the case, if it was me, I wouldn't work. Right, if it was me, if I have children and my husband is working enough for us to live comfortably, I actually would not work. Right, I would actually focus all my effort bringing up my children, right, because that would be my priority. And I know most mothers that they ache to do that. They actually ache to be home and bring up their children. But our context in society is that our husband does not bring home enough, right? And then we are forced to actually go out there and also help with the finances of the family. Right, so may Allah help us in the raising of our children lah. I mean, right, but Sayyidah Khadijah, right, those people who they argue that because there are people who they just like to work even with children, and they not abandon but they neglect, right, the upbringing of their children, right, because they just love working, they just love to be out there, in an office and working or whatsoever, right, and they say that Sayyidah Khadijah, the first Muslim woman, right, was a working woman, right. She was definitely a working woman, but she was a boss. Right, it's very different than when you're a boss. You're at home, right, you just take care of your entire business that's going on, and then you have workers under you, and you're at home the entire time, right. And we know Sayyidah Khadijah was known for her modesty. Right, she never interacted directly with men for no reason except for business matters. Right, and she had 7 boys underneath her, right, who worked for her. Right, so I will go into her life with Rasulullah, how it was, and how were their lives together. So today I actually want to read a part, right, of the marriage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Khadijah. Right, and this is why I want to read of it. Usually I don't read from the book. But today I want to read of it because when I was going through it, I realized that it's so mashallah, it's so beautiful, right? How the marriage happened, right? So, and it's something that I feel we were just told that she's the first wife. You're just told that of course they got married, the first wife, right? But no one actually speaks about the wedding affair, right? The entire affair of the wedding of Sayyidah Khadijah, the khutbahs that were given, right, during the wedding, right? It's all recorded. It's all recorded, right? What did the uncle of Rasulullah say? What did the uncle of Sayyidah Khadijah say during the khutbah, right, of the wedding of Rasulullah and Sayyidah Khadijah, right? And it's the most, it is the most beautiful wedding, right, to have ever happened in the history of human beings. The most beautiful wedding ever. Right, so not physically, like they have like the pomp and the, like whatever we have today. No, I'm not talking about that, right? But how it was conducted, like the khutbahs that were given, right? There was no union, right? That was more beautiful than the union between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidah Khadijah. No union at all. Right? And that's why she is the queen of his heart. Right, Sayyidah fi qalb al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right, she is a queen of the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he would love her, right, all the way to the end of his life, right, and he will always long, right, for her, right, even after she has left this world, years ago, right. So here, right, we're going to continue the story, right, so after she got the dream, but she saw the sun falling into her, into her garden, right, or into her, basically it's called a house. It's called a house, right? It's basically the courtyard, right? Courtyard, garden, courtyard, house. Basically an outdoor part of the house, right? So Sayyidah Khadijah, right? So after she got the dream, right, she went to her cousin Waraqah, right, Sayyidina Waraqah, and she told him about the dream, right? And he, right, said to her, perhaps you might be the wife, right? Perhaps. Right? Basically, he said that it is the dream is good news, right? It is good news. It's showing is an indication of goodness to come into your household, right? So perhaps that she is the wife, right? So she left, when she left the presence of Waraqah, right? So عادت خديجة من عند ابن عمها ورقة bin Nawfal. So Sayyidah Khadijah, she left the presence of her cousin Waraqah, right? Who is her ustad and who is her consultant, right? She consults Waraqah, and he's much older than her in age. Understand that? Right? So he is really far in his age at this point, right? Not so far lah, right? But basically elderly, and you can understand him because he's a character in the seerah, right? Whereby he spent his entire life. I mean, he dedicated his life to the studying of sacred texts, right? And he dedicated his life, searching for the last prophet. Right, he learned it in the books, and he knew the last prophet was coming. He knew very well. Right, he was a very strong believer in the one true God, and he used to reprimand the Arabs with their practices and their adulteration of the practices of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. He used to reprimand them. Right, he was a believer in the one true God, and he held on to the teachings of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. There was actually a group of them, right, who would learn the books together, right, and they were searching for the last prophet. Right, so of them, right, one of them passed away, right, one of them went astray, right, he actually joined the Christians in the Trinity, right, one of them went overseas to search for the last prophet, and when he was overseas, he heard, right, from one of the monks saying that, go back to where you came from, he's going to be from there, right, from Mecca. So on his way back, he was killed, right, so of them, the only one who was left was Waraqah, right, and by this time, he was an old man, he has been waiting. And from hearing what Sayyidah Khadijah had been telling him, right, he spotted, right, that the Prophet ﷺ was indeed the last prophet, but he was waiting for revelation. Right, they were actually waiting for him to be raised, for revelation to come, for him to be raised to be the last prophet. And so you can imagine at this point, right, before they got married, right, Rasulullah was 25 years old. Right, for a good 15 years, Waraqah and Sayyidah Khadijah, they were waiting. They were waiting. When will the revelation come? Because they were just waiting for him, to be raised to be a prophet. So every day in and out, they were just waiting for 15 years. And eventually, when he was 40 years old, when the revelation came, because 40 years old when Rasulullah got the first revelation, right, then he rushed to Sayyidina Waraqah. And Sayyidah Khadijah rushed him to her cousin Sayyidina Waraqah. Right, we'll go into the story when we get to that part. Right, and he affirmed for him, right, that he is indeed the last prophet, right, and the one that came to him was the same one that came to Nabi Musa, the same angel lah that came to him, right, and it will be only a very short period of time, then Waraqah will pass away, right, he actually dies very much soon after, right, because at that point he's very old, he's in his 80s, right, so 90s, he's an old man, right, and he himself said to Rasulullah, if I had the strength and the youth, right, I would fight with you, right, when they drive you out. It means I will protect you when they drive you out. And the Rasulullah said, will they drive me out? Right, because he was much loved in Mecca. He had no enemies whatsoever. So why in the world people drive me out? Right, and Waraqah said that no one has come with what you're going to come with, except that they will be fought. Right, there has never been a prophet from before you, right, who came to the people with this message, right, except that they will be fought. They will definitely be fought and persecuted. Definitely. No matter how much they love you right now. Right? They will drive you out because you're telling them to get rid of their idols. Alright, so that's Waraqah. And you can understand, kind of like imagine that he spent 15 years waiting for it. And when it finally comes, it's at the end of his life. And he's about to die, right? And but he at least of his group of friends who were looking for the last prophet, he was the only one who found him, right? Who actually found the much awaited prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the scholars say that there is a wisdom, right, in why Waraqah was not, he did not find Rasulullah early on. I mean, he found him, but he was waiting for the revelation. But they say of the wisdoms is that if Sayyidina Waraqah had lived, for a long time after the revelation of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people, right, would say that they would accuse Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of being a student of Waraqah. So he's just copying stories or copying words from previous scriptures, previous books. Right? So it was necessary for Rasulullah not to have a teacher. Right, not to have someone who could be an influence on him. And even till today, if you read what the disbelievers disbelievers have said about the seerah, right, about Rasulullah, because they don't want to admit that he was indeed a prophet and he indeed got revelation. Right, so how do they work with this? To say that that he did not get revelation, because if for them to admit that he got revelation is to admit that he's a prophet. And to admit that he's a prophet is to admit that Islam is correct. Right? So they don't want to admit that. Right? So how do they walk around it? They will say that, he had teachers of the Jews and the Christians from whom he copied. Right? And he wrote his own Quran. And that is, we know, it's absolute rubbish. Right? It's complete nonsense. Right? He did not have any teacher whatsoever. Right? In fact, he did not know much about the other books. He was not a student of the other books, right? Even though he was a believer in the one true God, he was a follower of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, in the religion of Nabi Ibrahim. He never ever got involved with the Christians nor the Jews, right, that were around Medina at that time, right, and who would come to Mecca every now and then. He never actually got involved. Then Sayyidah Khadijah, she learned, and she went to learn from Sayyidina Waraqah. But Rasulullah never went to. He did not go and learn about this, right? And that kept him pure. So no one can actually accuse him of copying, right? The other scriptures, right? He did not copy anybody, right? So we're going to the story. So Sayyidina Khadijah, she when she returned from being in the presence of her cousin Waraqah, who's an old man, she's in her 40s at this point, right? He's an old man, right? Her ustad, her consultant, right? And being with him, right, it actually brings peace to her heart, right? Because he would, with knowledge, right, he would affirm whatever she's seeing, right, and she's experiencing, right, he would affirm for her, right? So now this thought is in her head, right, and it's going round and round and round and round and round, right, in her head, right, and she's saying to herself that, is this really true, right? Is this really true? Am I seeing the last prophet in front of me? Right? Is that him? Right? So this affair, right, she kept it secret to herself, right? Because she was shy about it, right? And she was very protective about it, right? So she was now, there has been interest put in her heart, right, about this man named Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was very keen on marrying him, very keen. Right? But of course, there is a shyness to it, right? That you don't just go up to a man and you propose marriage, right? Right? But there is a shyness to it, and it did play in her mind for quite some time, right? For her to figure out what to do, right? Because she was really keen on marrying Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So she did not want to upset her family also, you mentioned, right? Because she had rejected, all the nobles of Mecca, right? When they came to her for her hand in marriage, she had rejected so many of them, right, from marriage. So now, it's occurring to her, right, that she wants to marry this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so the story goes that she was, in this state for quite some time, in this state of being like it's on her lah. Right? And it was beginning to show in her face. It was beginning to show in the way she is. Like somebody who is like really like thinking about marriage, like really like thinking about the one they want to marry. Right? Sometimes they seem they seem like they're not. They seem like they're always in the daydream, right? In a way. Right? So she seemed to be in that way. Right? So it's recorded she seemed to be in that way. Right? In just Like her mind was always, she seemed always distracted, that's the word. Like she seemed always distracted. So finally her close friend, and always the close friends you all know lah, right? So when you're like, you're in love, or you're distracted, or you're like, you're like thinking of marriage, you're like, in that world, like usually your best friends, they will know you're thinking about all these things. They know that you're being, your heart is being distracted, right? So in fact, just like most women, right, her best friend, right, or her closest friend, she noticed that there was something up with Sayyidah Khadijah, right? So and this person's name is Nafisa bint Mimba, right? So Nafisa bint Mimba, right? So Nafisa here is the best friend of Sayyidah Khadijah, close friend, right? She noticed this distraction in Sayyidah Khadijah, this like unsettlement in Sayyidah Khadijah. So she bint, I think it's Manba. Munabba. I'll figure it out. Right, so Muhammad. So she noticed this in Sayyidina Khadijah. She noticed it. So she came up to Sayyidina Khadijah, right? And then she said to Sayyidina Khadijah, Ma sha'nuki ya Khadijah. Right, meaning like, what's wrong with you? What's up with you? Right, why you like, you seem not yourself these few days, right? There's something up with you. So Sayyidina Khadijah, right, so she said that, I noticed that you're not yourself, right? You seem to be like not really present, right? You seem to be distracted, you seem to be, in deep thought, right, at all times. So what's occupying your mind, right? What's taking up all of your thoughts? So Sayyidah Khadijah, right, she hesitated right, to tell Sayyidah Nafisa at first, right, what she's really thinking about. Right, and eventually she thought to herself, you know what, okay, she will tell her Sayyidah Nafisa what's going on. So she says to the Sayyidah Nafisa, Ya Nafisa, inni ara fi Muhammad bin Abdullah ma la arahu fi ghayrihi min ar-rijal. So she said that, Ya Nafisa, for surely I see something in Muhammad bin Abdullah, right? She said his name, right? I see something in that man. And that's when, a woman begins to express that she has an interest in a man, right? So she says that I see something in Muhammad bin Abdullah, something that I don't see in other men. There's something special about him, right? And she says that فَهُوَ صَادِقُ الْأَمِينَ, right? He's very truthful, صادق, and huwa amin, and he's so trustworthy, right? It's unlike any human being ever before. Right, so when you hear like truthful and trustworthy, we know many people who are truthful, and we know many people who are trustworthy, right? But the extent for which he was, Rasulullah was so so great, so to such a large extent that the entire town noticed that this man never told a lie ever in his life, right? And he was completely trustworthy in anything that he is entrusted with, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so it was an extraordinary form of honesty and integrity. It was extraordinary to the point that everyone in the town noticed it. Right, everyone in Mecca, actually, he was known by it. Right, to be called a nickname, that means you do it so often, right, and it's so strong in you as a quality, right, that people begin to nickname you with this quality, with this trait. Right, so it's not a normal trait of being honest and being having integrity. It was something that was extraordinary. It was not normal for a human being to be that honest and to be that trustworthy. And that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And she says, "Wa huwa shariful hasib," right? Which means that, and he's of the noble class, right, of the Quraysh, right? And he's of a noble class because of him, because his ancestors carried him in their lineage. Right, so all of them were the best of people, right, in Mecca. Right, so of course he's from a noble class. It's because of him they were noble in the first place, right? His ancestors. Right, وَهُوَ شَهْمُ الْكَرِيمِ. Right, and he is, he's a very honored, noble, and generous, right, person. And we can see, he's an individual, right? There is so, there's an amazing thing about him. وَهُوَ إِلَى ذَلِكَ لَهُ نَبَأَ عَجِيبٌ. Right, and I can tell, right, that there is something very amazing about him. Right, he has an amazing, destiny. Right, there's something amazing about this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when I read these stories, I'm like, and I wonder, how come before that no one proposed to him. Right? Like, because he was around in Mecca for 25 years. I suppose he was 25 years old. Right? And his amazingness, right, was very much apparent to the entire of Mecca. Like his awesomeness, like he's so beautiful in person, so beautiful in character, so amazing. Right? And he was the most handsome person in Mecca at that time. Right? So like, the only thing that you can think of, that stops people from actually proposing and asking for his hand in marriage for their own daughters could be, and I think it is, that he has no money. It boils down to, since he was a baby, right, when all the other witnesses did not want him because he's an orphan, meaning no money. Right? So that's when the dunya comes in. Right? So everything is perfect. Just the money's not there. So so for it could be a reason why nobody, because 25 is, and at that age also is not an early age to get married. It's quite late for them also. 25 for a man, and because they marry very young, right? So there's nothing stopping them from getting married, right? Besides wealth, right? It stops them from going up and proposing, right, to the daughter of someone else, right? So because 25 for our time is normal, right? 25 for a man to get married, right? But in their time, younger, because they will marry many anyway, right? So they would marry one. So that's it said with Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ibn Umar, right? It was only a few years. I mean, they were not very far apart in their age. Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ibn Umar. Sayyidina Umar and his son, his first son, right? They were not far at all in their age, right? So it's because Sayyidina Umar married young, right? Radiallahu anhu. And it was said that Sayyidina Ibn Umar, right, he became Muslim before Sayyidina Umar, right? Because he was a young boy. So if he actually became Muslim, how young was young? Right, because it's maybe a young boy lah. But I mean, I will have to refer and check again what's the age. But I remember my teacher saying that Sayyidina Ibn Umar actually became Muslim before Sayyidina Umar himself. Like his son became Muslim first. Right, but Allahu Alam, I'll check it out, right, to affirm the facts and the age. Right, so she said this about him. Right, and that's probably the reason why to that point he's still single. Because no money. And people today also same thing, same story since that time till now. Right. Huh?
So what age is do the men get married?
Younger. Because once they reach puberty, they can go ahead and get married. Yeah, if they are able to support, if they are able to handle, because for traditional societies, when they reach puberty, they are considered to be adults. There is no such thing as the age of teenagehood, right? In traditional societies, teenage is not an age, it's not a phase, right? But in our modern society, teenage is a phase, which is why you have teenage issues and teenage problems, right? Because they are in the crossroads of being adult and not adult. Are they adult or not? Right? Basically, right? By the religion they are held fully accountable for all their actions. By the law of the country, they are not held fully accountable for all their actions. Right? There is a limit. There is an age, right, whereby if they go to a girls' home, if they do commit some crime, right, or they go to, I mean, depending on their age, where they are sent when they commit crime. But in the religion, no. In the religion, once you have reached puberty, you are adult. So it's child, adult. That's it. There is no age in between. Right? But because our society is like that, which is why it's hard for people of our time to understand how it could be that Sayyidina Aisha married at that age. Right? She married at the age of 9. Right? And we'll go into her story, right, Sayyidina Aisha. Right? But basically, people at a time, when they reached puberty, they were adults. Because someone, she once said to me, how could, and she said, even though it is even if it's the culture of the people, right, to marry off their daughters when they reach puberty. Right, this girl, she was like arguing with me, and she was saying that, a girl at 9 years old does not have the physical ability to handle a marriage, right? To handle a husband, or to handle children, or to handle pregnancy, or to handle, a household, basically, right? But that's your perception of your society, right? You don't know how they were. At 9 years old, they were a real woman. Right, for us, we don't think so. We think 9-year-old are primary kids, right? Right, how can she be pregnant, 9-year-old, kan? Right, but we are comparing to our people. Our people are weak. We are weak people. Right, we never saw, we've never seen Sayyidina Aisha how she looks like. Right, so probably, if we saw how she was as a 9-year-old, we'd be like, yeah, she's a woman. Like she's definitely a woman, like in a way. Like, but because for us, even we have like 16-year-olds who are not so woman yet. Kan? Right, so it's I think it's really society, right, that has removed responsibility, right, from human beings, right, when they have reached the age of puberty. By right, they are fully responsible and fully accountable. And even till today, if you go into the traditional societies, right, they do give. Once you're 7 years old, they begin to work on the farm, right. And once you reach puberty, khalas, you're on your own, and that's how. Naturally it is lah. It's just childhood and adulthood. The young of a species and the old of the species. Right? There's no middle age. Right? Allahu Alam. There's a book that Syekh Hamzah he once recommended, but I can't remember the title right now. But it's something about the teenage fallacy. Right? Basically the falsity of the teenage life. Right? That is something that is man-made. Right? Man created the teenage age. Right? It's something that is not actually there. Right? But now our teenage age has stretched up to 25. Yeah. 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 Not until lah, but their attitude, their perangai, they are teenage right now till they get married. Even then, some of them still act as babies. Understood.
Even just 50 years ago, our grandparents got married at age 12, 13.
Yeah, my great-grandmother, she married at age 12.
Yeah.
12.
And my grandfather was 14.
Yeah. And she got pregnant straight away. And she handled. And she had kids every year. Right? We were like, age 12, that's primary 6. Right? How in the world are you going to handle the household? They could. Right? Because expectation of society. They could. We baby our kids too long. Right, so but don't quote me, on this. Please don't, like, those who are listening, so don't quote me on Facebook or that, because like it's all like issues that people whatever lah. Okay, so right, so she says, so Khadijah said that so she said all things about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, and she says that wa sha'nu gharib, right, so she said that I can see in this man, right, that he has an amazing affair, an amazing news about this man, right? Amazing, and that his affair, it seems strange. There's something strange to it also. It's not normal how he is. And he says, she says, وَقَدْ سَمِعْتُ مَا قَالَهُ مَيْسَرَةُ غُلَامِي عَنْهُ. Right, so now she explains why she thinks he's strange. And it is not strange, but there's a strangeness about him. She says that I heard what my slave boy Maisara said about him, like when he watched him, right, of hearing the trees and the stones say salam, something strange going on, right, and then you hear these people coming up to you and telling you this man is the last prophet, right, all these things that were happening, the she from Sayyidah Maisara, right, so all of these things it affected her, right, and she says that وَرَأَيْتُ مَا كَانَ يَضِلُّهُ حين قدم علينا من سفرته وما تحدث به رهبان عنه. Right, and she says that and I saw, right, what was shading him, right, as he approached Mecca. I myself saw in my own eyes. I saw the cloud following them, right, and shading him, right, and what the priests and the monks, the Jewish monks, right, what the rabbis, right, what they say about him. I heard what they have said about him. وَإِنَّ فُؤَادِي لَيَكَادُ يَجْزِمُ بِأَنَّهُ نَبِي هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ. Right, and she says that, and my heart, right, is almost convinced, right, almost very sure that he is indeed the prophet of this time. And my heart's telling me that he is the prophet of this time. فقالت نفيسة said, وماذا يشتغل بالك من ذلك حتى تصبحي في هذه الحالة من الشهوم والشرود. Right, and she says, and Nafisa said, so okay, I hear what you're saying, right? So what's occupying your mind, right, on this matter? Because we know that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's an amazing person. We know that there's an amazing affair around him. But what is bothering you so much? Right, and then coming to the matter, what's the issue here? Tell me. Like, what's the issue? Why is it occupying your mind? And then she said, "Atamanna an yakuna li zawjan. Atamanna an yakuna li zawjan. I'm hoping that he be my husband. I'm hoping that he be my husband. Wala adri kaifa asilu ila dhalik. And I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know how to make him my husband. Right, basically, I'm hoping that he be my husband, but I'm not sure how do I arrive at this, this hope of mine." So qalat Nafisa said, "Ta'dhanina ana udabbir al-amr." Right, she says that, would you permit me to arrange everything? Right, leave it up to me, let me arrange. But will you permit me? Give me permission to do so. So Sayyidah Khadijah, she was so happy when Sayyidah Nafisa said that. She said, "If Ali ya Nafisa ma tastati'in." Right, do, Nafisa, whatever you are able to, just do it. Right, because she's like, like very, very keen on the marriage. Right. So Sayyidah Nafisa, she went off, right, and she followed Rasulullah around for some time. She actually followed him around. This is a good friend, man. Right, she's like, my best friend wants to get married. She's aiming this guy. Gonna figure this out. So, I mean, mashallah. So she followed him. She kind of like looked and just observed him, right? And then finally she saw him by himself, right? So she came forward to him, right? And she said, "Oh Muhammad, what is stopping you from getting married?" Straight to the point. Right? What is stopping you from getting married? And then he said, "Ma biyadi ma atazawwaju bihi." I have nothing in my hands for me to get married with. Meaning I have no money. Basically, and that's true. So even from his point of view, he's not married at this point at 25 because he got no money. And there's no money. So no one has approached him because he has no money. And he has not approached anyone because he has no money. Basically, he's orphaned. Right? And he was working for Sayyidah Khadijah, actually, in fact, in other narrations, that he began working for her in hope of actually saving up enough to actually get married. Right, he began work lah, and that's why even till today, same story, right, same story till today. Like men at 25 years old, they want to get married. What do they do first? Go work, right? Go work, earn money, save up, then you go with your proposal to the family, right? The same story since that time till now, same thing, right? Go get your dollars up, and then you can go and propose, right? So, you can't say it's sunnah, right? But it's society. Right. So, you can't say it's sunnah.
But he did it, so it's not sunnah.
It's society. Right? He did many things. Like, for example, like, he breathed. I'm sorry, like, he eats, basically, like, these are things that human beings do. Societal things. Right? So, these are societal things that are not unique to his way. It's not uniquely his way that, if let's say, for example, the entire society, right, just got married without paying any dowry, without paying any any money whatsoever. They got married broke lah, basically. And he's the only one who actually ensured, he actually got money, and he actually had a house, and he had, basically make sure he was stable before he proposed marriage. Then you can say maybe it's part of the sunnah, right? But if everybody's doing the same thing, everybody's working to gain money to actually propose marriage, it's part of society. It's a societal thing. Because nobody will accept your proposal if you have no money.
But everyone's getting married, so isn't that so? It's sunnah to get married, and
It's part of his. That one he said. That's from his words himself, right? He said, "Marry, right? For my way, and my way is to get married." Because there were people who did not get married, and people who did get married. Right? So that one is from a hadith itself. Okay, it's different, Alright. So she came up to him, right, and she says that, so he said that I have nothing in my hands for me to get married with. Right, and then she said that, فَإِن كَفَيْتَ ذَلِكَ. Right, so she says that فَإِن كُفِيتَ ذَلِكَ, right? And he says that, and if that was handled for you. So Sayyidah Nafisa, she says, right, if someone handled that for you, right, that you have no money. وَدُعِيتَ إِلَى الْجَمَالِ وَالْمَالِ وَالشَّرَفِ وَكَفَاءَ أَلَا تَجِدْ. Right, so she said that if someone handled that for you, right, and they call you, right, to beauty, wealth, honor, and basically kufu. Kufu means that they are comparable and they're compatible. And compatibility, right, would you be favorable in answering? Right, would you answer this? Would you be favorable? Then he said, Faman, who? Right, and she said Khadijah. And he said, and how am I supposed to get there? And how is that for me? And how am I supposed to attain that? And she said that, Alayya wa ana af'al. Oh, it's on me, let me handle it. Right, so basically she went to handle it, right, for him. Right, so Sayyidah Nafisa, mashallah, she has her ways, right, of getting people, of matchmaking. Right, so she's very nice way of matchmaking. Right, so she went, she ran, she hastened to Sayyidah Khadijah, right, to give her the good news. Because it's good news, right, that his response is that there was no, but his response was, how do I achieve that? Right, that means he is keen. Right, that was how she pulled up from him that he is keen. Right, so she said, Khadijah, like, if a man was not interested, right, and even if it's like a free marriage, for example, like, because here, that's what it's like, he says he has no money, right? So, if a man was not interested, they would say outright. Men are not, if they're not interested in a woman, they would just, no, that kind of thing. Right, they would just say it, they're not interested. Right, but the fact that he said, how do I reach there? How do I achieve there? That means he is very much interested. Right, so Sayyidah Nafisa now has good news that he's interested in you, as Sayyidah Khadijah, right? And she hastened to her, right, to inform her of what he just said. Right, so now Sayyidah Khadijah, right, now she's gaining confidence, right? Because now once you know that the guy side is interested, like, you're confident already to approach. Right, because there's no rejection that might happen. Right, so she now herself came to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, she sent for him, he came, right, and then she said, Ya bna am, right, oh my cousin. And that is the way they speak, So they are like the entire of Mecca, the entire tribe. Right, they all came from Nabi Ismail. Right, so even though they're not direct cousins, right, but there is a relation somewhere along the line. Right, they do meet in lineage somewhere because they're a tribe. Right, tribes all come from, they're basically extended family. That's a tribe. Right, so they will always address each other by saying, oh my cousin, oh my cousin, oh my cousin, that kind of thing. Right, but might not be a direct cousin. So you say to Rasulullah sallallahu out of respect, instead of calling him by his name, right, they usually take a title, in a way. So she said, oh my cousin, for surely I have a desire. Right, I have a desire with you. Right, very straight to the point. فَإِنِّي قَدْ رَغَبْتُ فِيكَ لِقَرَابَتِكَ وَلِقَرَابَتِكَ. Right, so she said, for surely I have a desire for you. Right, she said, I desire for you. Right, because of one thing, you are close in family to me. Right, there's a link, right, in their family, within their families. Right, and your station, right, in this society, your station amongst the people, right? I mean, you're of someone who is noble and people highly respect. Wa amanatika wa husnu khulqika, right? So and also and also because of your trustworthiness, and also your beautiful character, right? So I have a desire for you, right? Because I see all of these things in you. Wa sidqu hadithika. فَكَلِّمْ أَعْمَامَكَ لِيَسَعُوا فِي ذَلِكَ. Right, and she says it, and also of your truthfulness in your speech. So she said, so speak to your uncles, right, so that they become, open to this. They become open to this matter. So Sayyidah Khadijah, right, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, he thought about it, right, of what Sayyidah Khadijah informed him, right, said to him about, right, and he went to his uncle, right, it's Abu Talib, right, and he spoke to his uncle, and he got his uncle's permission for him to send a proposal, right. So this is how the story goes lah. Right? So it's not that so much like she did propose, right, but of course by society, right, he still has to do the proposing, right. So she was basically, you won't say that she proposed, you say that she was the one who made the first move, right. That's the thing. She made the first move, right, to in a sense to initiate marriage, right. So he went back to his uncle, right, and he got his permission, right, for him to approach Sayyidah Khadijah in marriage, right, to send a proposal to Sayyidah Khadijah, and his uncle agreed, right. His uncle actually agreed, right. So right, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle Abu Talib, right, he sent one of his servants to go to Sayyidah Khadijah to send the proposal and see what she says. Right, so now it's as if they are sending a proposal to see if she's agreeable to the marriage or not lah. Right, but it has already happened between them already that they have agreed, right, to the marriage. Right, so the servant, right, she went, right, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in fact, right, to find Sayyidah Khadijah, right, and when he sat in front of her, right, she said to him, Sayyidah Khadijah, she said to him, and by my father and my mother, she swears by her father and her mother, and she swears by Allah, wallahi, Nabi Abi Anta wa Ummi. Nabi Abi Anta wa Ummi is that she's like saying that may my father and my mother be sacrificed for you, right, for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the way they speak in the culture. Right, when they are serious about a matter, they will speak, on the account of their parents, on my parents' life. Right, I swear about this matter. Right, and then I swear by Allah, wallahi, she says, Ma af'alu hadha shay. I am not doing this. She said, I'm not doing this, except that I have hope. I have hope that you are indeed the last prophet who will be sent. Right, so she said that to him. Right, so I'm only doing this, I'm only getting myself married to you because I'm hoping you're the last prophet. Right? I'm just hoping that you are. Right, and if you are the last prophet, right, then I hope that you would know my rights as your wife, right, and you will know my station as your wife, right. So, and that you would make dua for me, right, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, right, and you would dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me, right, she said that. Okay, so she told him straight out, right, what's her intention, right, because she's been observing him and she's hoping that he's the last prophet. So what did he say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So he said that, wallahi, la in kuntu ana. Right, so she says that she said, I swear by Allah, if it's really me who right, so Rasulullah, he responds, he says that if it's really me, right, who is the last prophet, if it's truly me, right, then you, whatever you have done, right, for me, in you wanting to get to marry me, right, then I will never waste your efforts, right, in trying to find out about the last prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he says, and if it's not me, right, and it's recorded when he said, if it's not me, so I can't be sure, there's no revelation yet, I can't be sure if I am indeed the last prophet. So, and if it's not me, right, then I hope that God, whom you have done this for, right, He will not disappoint you, right, in your hopes or in your intentions. Right, so he said that about her. Right, so they went ahead and they got the wedding to be prepared. Right, so they set a date for the wedding, right, and the wedding. So we're going to go into detail of the wedding, right? So who came for the wedding, the guests, and whatsoever, and and why not, kan? Why not, kan? Like, of anybody's wedding you want to hear about, this should be the wedding of not even of the year or the century, is of the existence, of the human existence. This is the wedding that you want to hear about every detail, right? How this wedding actually happened. Because from this wedding, right, this union, we will speak about it in our second point, right, this union, right, was a blessed union from which he had 6 children, right, and also that it was to be the most dear thing to him in his life, the closest thing to his heart, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is like the dream marriage, the dream wedding, the dream marriage, the dream couple. If there's any love story that you want to read about their love story. There is nothing like this, right? And it's not going to end here in this world. It goes on to the next world, right? Whereby they are united together. Right, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, he brought, so the date was set, right, he brought his uncle, small affair, the wedding of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadijah, right, he brought his uncle, right, who were Abu Talib, Abbas, Hamza, right, of the uncles that came, right, for him to go and propose the marriage, for the marriage itself. And she brought her own uncles, right? Because her father at that point had passed away. Her father was killed in battle or something like that, right? So, and I remember her father was an upright person. He was righteous, right? So Khuwailid, he was of the monotheists, the Hunafa, right? So, and he was somebody who was known for his nobility and for his honesty. And basically, they have all the traits, lah. These are the upright people, right? So the unification, right, or unifying. Basically, the union. Ya Allah, what's this about? No, I'm joking. Union. The union between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidah Khadijah, right, was a much awaited union. Right, it was a very beautiful union, right, between these two, because the both families knew each other, right, and they knew each other to be of high value, right, respectable and high value. Right, so they came together, and Abu Talib, he stood up and he gave the khutbah. Right, so he began. Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
At the wedding.
Yeah.
Before nikah.
Yeah. So he gave a khutbah. Right, and this you would say, right, it is something of weddings, right, for us to do, for people to stand up and give khutbah, right, to actually just say a short speech, right, to advise the people. Right, usually the qadi, he does it, right, the imam that comes, right, he will give the khutbah, right. But in fact, if like the wali wants to do it, right, or even the groom wants to do it, right, anyone in that gathering, if they want to do this, they may very well do so. Yeah, they can very well do so. Right, so he begins. Yeah, Abu Talib. And I love this. I love to read the khutbah because they're so eloquent in the way they express themselves. Right. So he says, Alhamdulillah alladhi ja'alana من ذرية إبراهيم وزرع إسماعيل وضع معد أي معدنه وعنصره المضر أي أصله وجعلنا حضن بيته. Right, so حضن بيته. Right, so he says that all praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, who has made us of the descendants of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, right, and of what came from Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, right, and of what came from Ma'ad, right, and Mudar, right, the ancestors, right, of the noble ancestors of the Quraysh, right, of whom are also the ancestors of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, and made us the custodians of this house, the custodians of the Kaaba, right, the custodians, right, and those who are entrusted, right, with the affair of this house, right, and the sanctity, right, of this house, right, and those who are established, al-qa'imin, those who stand up, right, and those who establish, right, and those who are in service, right, of this house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they begin by speaking about their sharaf, right, their honor, right, in that they are the custodians, they are the ones who are looking after this house, they are the ones who are placed in charge of serving the people of this house and the house itself, I mean the Kaaba itself. وَجَعَلَنَا بَيْتًا مَحْجُوجًا, right, and he made this house a place whereby people come to for Hajj. وَحَرَمًا آمِنًا, right, he made for us a sanctuary, right, that is peaceful. Right, and this is something that is very, of the blessings onto the Quraysh. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Surah Quraysh. right? To remind them that it's because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the Kaaba, nobody actually attacks you. Right? Nobody actually goes into Mecca and attacks the Quraysh, as opposed to the other tribes that were around Mecca at that time. Right? So those who were in Mecca, they were protected. وَجَعَلَنَا حُكَّامَ النَّاسِ, right? And made us those who judge between the people. Right? And then he begins. So to begin, right? ثُمَّ إِنَّ ابْنُ أَخِي هَذَا Muhammad bin Abdullah. So to begin, right? For surely my nephew here, right? Muhammad bin Abdullah, لا يوزن به رجل إلا رجح به شرفا ونبلا. What does that mean? This is what I want to read out this, what he said, the uncle of Rasulullah. He said that for surely this nephew of mine, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad bin Abdullah, he is not weighed, right? Weighed next to any man, except that he will outweigh this man in nobility and intellect and honor, right? In greatness, right? So the uncle is saying this. You all know this man, Muhammad bin Abdullah. Any man placed next to him on a scale, he would outweigh. By far, he would outweigh, right? Any man that is around. وَفَضْلًا وَعَقْلًا, right? And how much better he is, and how, and his aql, right? And how, how smart he is. Right? He would outweigh any man in Mecca, right? In all of these attributes. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِي الْمَالِ قَلْ فَإِنَّ الْمَالَ ظَلْ وَزَائِلْ. Right, so and now he says, and even if his wealth is little, right, so it's always the issue of the wealth, right? Even if his wealth is little, right? For surely wealth, it decreases and it goes away, it disappears. So he says, wealth goes away, wealth disappears, and it's a lesson for us to understand also, because even though Abu Talib, right, he is not a Muslim at this point. Right, he is pointing out a lesson, right? That when you look at men, right, in marriage, look at attributes, because attributes last. Right, usually attributes last. Right, wealth does not last. Wealth comes and it goes. Right, even looks. Right, looks come and then they grow old. Right, I mean if you really love them, they will always be beautiful to you. Right, but I mean all of these things go away. Right, but qualities, good qualities, they stay for a long time. Right. وَأَمْرُ حَائِلٍ وَوَضِيعَةُ مُسْتَرْجِعَةٌ وَهُوَ وَاللَّهِ بَعْدَ هَذَا لَهُ نَبَأٌ عَظِيمٌ. Right, and he says, and the affair, is in front of us. Right, the affair is here, it's in front of us. Right, and this entrustment, right, is being given. And his entrustment is being given. And he says, his uncle says, in his lecture, right, for the wedding of Rasulullah Sayyidatina Khadijah, right, in the lecture, and he says that, I swear, and he, this Muhammad, I swear, right, by Allah, that he has a great affair. Right, Naba'un Azim. He has great news that's in store for him. Right, so he's presenting the groom now, right, saying that we're going to wed the two of you, right? So Khadijah said in Rasulullah, and you have to understand who is this man. Right, he's not like any other man. Right, he's different from other men. He outweighs every other man, and we know there is something in store for him. Right, we can tell there's something great in store for him. Right, مخاطر الجليل وقد خطب إليكم رغبة في كريمتكم خديجة. Right, and he says that our son, our nephew Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, he has sent forth a proposal, right, to you, right, stating his desire, right, for your noble woman Khadijah. Right, he's stating his desire, and this is the normal way where they do it. Right, they when there's interest, right, and they confirm that the interest is two ways. Right, they go back to their families immediately and they send their families forward, right, to seek marriage from the other party. Right. So وَقَدْ بَذَلَ لَهَا مِنَ الصَّدَاقِ ما آجله وآجله 12 أوقية ونشا. Right, so basically now he's mentioning the mahar, right, the mahar that is going to be given Sayyidina Khadijah. Right, so here, so basically what it means is about 20 dirhams. Right, there's the amount of mahar that he gave Sayyidah Khadijah. Right. Oh, okay, not 20 dirhams. No, he spent 20 dirhams plus, here they putting in the numbers lah. You have to work it out, right? Because it's the old people writing of money, right? So basically they just stated the mahar, right? The dowry for the marriage.
So he had money for dowry.
I mean, it was not mentioned how the money came about lah. Right? I did hear, from other sources that she helped, right, in him coming up with the dowry money. Of course, because he was working, right, in a way, right. So there is a nobility to it, right? It's a nobility to it because for a man to give the woman dowry, right, it is part of the marriage contract, right, and that he needs to work it out, right, and give her gift of when it comes to the marriage, right. So. Right, and some of them mentioned also that it could be that Abu Talib was the one who helped him out. Right, so Allahu Alam where they got the money from. Right, but basically the money was brought up to be offered to her. Right, and then Waraqah stood up. So Waraqah was there at the wedding. Right, Waraqah, of course it would be him lah, right, who would speak for her, right, her own cousin. So Waraqah, he stood up, right, and he says, Alhamdulillahilladhi ja'alana kama dhakarta. Right, so he said, may praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has made us, right, as how you have mentioned, of the progeny of Nabi Ibrahim and Nabi Ismail, right, of those who are custodians of the Kaaba, right, of those who guard over the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَفَضَّلَنَا عَلَى مَا عَدَدْتَ فَنَحْنُ سَادَةَ الْعَرَبِ وَقَادَتُهَا. Right, so and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred us, right, over whatever you have enumerated, right, in your speech lah. So he's responding to the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his speech, right. So he agrees. He's saying that, and he has made us the leaders, right, of the Arabs, right, and the ones to guide them. وَأَنْتُمْ أَهْلُ ذَلِكَ كُلُّهُ. Right, and he said, and all of you, the family of Rasulullah, you are a people, right, who are, deserving of this. You are very much deserving of this. لا ينكر العرب فضلكم, right, and there is no Arab, right, there is no one in this peninsula, no Arab, right, who would actually deny, right, your station amongst the Arabs, right, the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Bani Hashim, right, they had a standing, they were known, right, and again, as we mentioned from the first lesson, right, that they were people who were noble from the very beginning, not because of their money. It was never because of money, right, it was because of their character. Right, so they were. So it's like a known family. The people from this family, they tend to have very fine character, right? So it's known that to be from the family of Bani Hashim is because of that it's understood that you are of fine character, and it's only because Rasulullah is from this family. All right. So and then he says that ولا يرد أحد من الناس فخركم وشرفكم, right, and no one would actually deny, right, your nobility, right, and your the pride that your family carries. Right, there is something, the fakhr is like something that is not pride, right, but in a sense something that is honorable, right, like in a way, right. ورغبتنا في الاتصال بحبلكم وشرفكم, right, and right, we have also a desire, right, to connect with you, right, in your honor, right, and in your in your nobility, right. So Sayyidina Waraqah, he gives the speech at the wedding of Sayyidina Khadijah and Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we also have a desire, right, for us to link to your family, right, because you see your family as such, and you see Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as such, we want to link. Right, because it is an honor for us to have our daughter wed to you. Right. فاشهدوا علي معاشر قريش أني قد زوجت خديجة بنت خويلد من محمد بن عبد الله وذكر المهر. Right, so now he says, right, and he says, so bear witness, right, oh, the people of Quraysh, that for surely uh, uh, I am marrying, right, Khadijah bint Khuwailid to Rasulullah, to Muhammad bin Abdullah, right, and then they were wed. So that is the nikah itself, right. So the khutbah was given first, the sermons were given first, and then the nikah. They did the ceremony, right? فقال أبو طالب أحببت أن يشاركك عمها. Right, so Abu Talib said that I would like that her uncles also take part. Right, her uncles, take part in this. And because Waraqah is not the uncle, Waraqah is the cousin. Right, the uncles take part. So now the uncle says, Ishhadu alayya ma'ashar al-Quraysh. So he said, oh, people of Quraysh, right, witness over me, right, that I am قد أنكحت محمد bin Abdullah Khadijah bint Khuwailid. Right, so Abu Talib actually insisted that is the uncle to do the nikah, right, not the cousin, because cousin is not wali, right. Right, but cousin, there is actually a ranking lah, but that one is under inheritance law. Okay, about the cousin actually coming into ranking. Right, there is a ranking of the cousin from the father's side. There's a ranking, but he's not your mahram. It's not your mahram, right? But there's like a last case scenario. There's a possibility of him becoming the wali. Okay. But Abu Talib, he insisted that the uncle be the wali. He's the one who wed Sayyidina Khadijah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So now the wedding has happened, right? And then it was mentioned that it was such a great joy in Mecca, right? That a noble woman was wed to a noble man, right? And there was they did slaughter animals, and then there was a feast. Right, and then they came into the household of Sayyidina Khadijah radiallahu anha. Right, there's a lot of poetry lah, and they're very very beautiful. Right, but I need a lot of time to actually prepare them in English. Right, because this to translate them on the spot is a bit hard. Yeah, because that you will lose the beauty of it because it's poetry. Right, so and so there were poetry written about it, about the wedding of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidah Khadijah. Inshallah, one day this book we can translate. Translate this book one day. Right? I'm not sure if it will be translated or not. Right, and here, right, we of the scholars who have said that, and that was what Allah subhanahu wa taala meant in Surah Duha when Allah subhanahu wa taala says, "Wajadaka a'ilan fa'aghna." And Allah says, and we found you in need. We found you in need, and we enriched you. Right, and of the scholars who say, right, that this enrichment is him getting married to Sayyidah Khadijah. Right, that is the enrichment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala onto our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, because him being married to her freed him, right, of a lot of financial worries and financial concerns. Right, it actually freed him a lot, right, because of someone who had like already a big business going on. So even she herself didn't really have to work. In a way, because she had a business that was stable, right, that was bringing in the wealth. Alright. Okay, so that is the wedding lah of Sayyidina Khadijah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have a question? Yeah.
So how can we apply what the wedding is to the context of today's wedding? And how can we also have a wedding like that?
Like that. First and foremost, if you target a man. But seriously, if you do spot someone, because you are a woman, right? You are a woman. So either you hang around and just wait for someone to come to you, right? Or if you are like seriously seeking, right? And you do like identify someone whom you think, because the first thing that we learn, lessons from this wedding, we learn that money is not a factor, right? In the deciding who you marry, money is not a factor. Money is never a factor. Unless, like, unless you're on the man's side and you see that the woman's family is like all about money, right? Then you might want to consider not marrying that family, right? Because that family, might be very obsessed about wealth, right? And I know of people, and I know personally of people who they wanted to get married, right? And the future in-laws actually asked about their salary, asked about how much money they have in their bank, how much savings they have, all ask what kind of insurance policies have you bought, that kind of thing, like really serious stuff you all asking about. Right? I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, back off, like, it's my business, my money. Right? I mean, even my husband doesn't really know exactly how much I earn. He does not know. Actually, I also don't know. I never count. Right? But then like basically, people who are so overly concerned about money, right? It's not a good sign. It's actually not a good sign. Right? They're obsessed about having it expensive, having the most expensive bridal, whatever. Right? These are all red flags. All red flags that they are being very obsessed about the world, about the dunya. They want the most expensive place. They want a hotel. They want this. They want that, and they're demanding. If the husband, by his own generosity, gives it, say, no, let's have it at a nice place. I want to pamper you, that kind of thing. That's fine. Right? But if the family is demanding, I don't know. To me, it's a sign lah. It's a sign, right? Of maybe in the future you will not stop at the wedding. In the future you might have more demands, like coming your way. Right, so basically the first issue the first lesson that we learn from this wedding is to see character, because all that she said in Nafisa when she first expressed her interest in Rasulullah was that she spoke about his character. He just spoke about his character the entire time, right? And then after that she revealed that she thinks that he is the last prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even in the khutbah of the wedding, his own uncle Abu Talib, right, what did he focus on? Character. And there is a hadith also where Rasulullah said, right, to fathers, if a man comes to you seeking the hand of your daughter, right, and his religion and character pleases you, then don't reject him. And the hadith says, and and if you reject him, right, then be prepared for widespread corruption. Right, so in the hadith there's no mention of money. Like, what money you want to talk about? Right, and for some most beloved daughters, Fatima Zahra, right? So many of the Sahabas came forward to seek her hand in marriage. So many, and they were rich, and they had good character. They were very rich Sahaba with excellent character. They were of the nobles of the Sahaba, right? But all rejected. And she was given to Sayyidina Ali. And Sayyidina Ali was poor. He was very poor. Sayyidina Ali, he used to go around collecting wood and sell wood. And he was, he had very, his job was nothing anybody today would be proud about. Right, go and collect wood and go and sell wood, go and draw water and get money for it. Like a handyman. Like, he went around doing that. But he was a scholar. Right, but that time scholar, you don't earn money from scholarship. Right? So we understand from Rasulullah, he gave to Sayyidina Ali, because money played no part in choosing a spouse, and money should never play a part in choosing a spouse. Right? This is the hadith about the dowry, right? That the lower dowry is better, right? But of course, a dowry is required, right? The dowry, the hadith about the lower dowry is better is more on the woman's part, not on the man to demand. Hey, you know what, lower dowry better? You better lower your dowry. No, it's not on the man to demand, right? But it's on the woman, right? When you see someone of good character, of good personality, of good religion, right? By the hadith, his religion and his character pleases you, right? It said to the fathers, right? Don't reject him. Right? Don't reject him. And for me, my own husband also was the same thing, right? So his religion pleased me, his character pleased me. Right? I was pleased about it, right? And when I first married him, before I married him, right, I actually asked him the question, and that I asked him, would you be interested in studying overseas? Because for me also money was not an issue to me also. Right? Because I work, like it's not an issue lah. Money is not an issue. Right? But then what was an issue was that because I just came from Syria, I wanted to go and study. I really wanted to go and further my studies. Right? But then when I asked him, will you be interested in going overseas to study Islam? Maybe like sometime. Let's see, 1 year. I said 1 year. I said to him. Then he said, no, I'm not interested whatsoever. He said to me, he's not interested whatsoever. At all. Zero. Completely not interested. And I was like, okay. Because that's my dream. It's actually my dream to go and study overseas. So, but then I remembered the hadith. If his religion pleased you and his character pleases you, right, then marry. Right, so I took the hadith, tawakal, ala Allah, right, khalas, shelf my dream, right, put it aside, don't have to think about it anymore, right, marry and the kid is settled down lah, that's it, right. But then, when you do as what Rasulullah has advised, what he has said to you, then it will not, Allah will not fail you lah, right, Allah will not fail you, and it was very sudden, his change in mindset. He had no interest at all in studying overseas, absolutely no interest, right? But I remember the day whereby he brought up the topic, because I never bugged him about it, because I married him knowing that he was not interested whatsoever in studying overseas. He told me his whole life he had no interest in going overseas at all, no interest. The furthest he went was Makkah, Medina. He didn't go anywhere. Malaysia every now and then. Right, so that's what he told me. I don't really care about traveling. Right, so to actually go overseas for a year was like major, and to the point whereby for me to reconcile with this, right, I actually said to him, will you be okay, agreeable, for me to go for about a year and then you stay in Singapore, right? And he was agreeable. Go lah. Right. And then I'll meet, and then you come back after a year. So it was to the extent though that his complete reluctance to go overseas and study. Right? So the change in the heart happened so miraculously. I don't know what happened. I didn't even push it. She just one day said, what do you think about studying overseas? That's after we got married lah. I mean, we were already like the first few months of our marriage. Yeah, so Allah changes hearts. And then before you know it, you're 4 years overseas. Right? And now he's like he wants to continue. Right? But I was like, no, like your parents. Yeah, so but basically that's the first thing. Listen to the hadith. Right? Religion, character. Look at these two things. Right? The second thing that we can learn about the wedding of Rasulullah SAW and Sayyidah Khadijah, right, is the giving of khutbah. Right, to the people who are present. Right? So anything that will benefit the people, right, that is of the of encouraged things that you could do during a wedding, which is something that we don't do anymore. Usually the imam does it. Yeah, but we don't do anything. We just sit around and we wait for the nikah to happen. Right? But yeah, for the qadi to come, right? I mean, it could be. I think no one has the confidence, or but if it's just like close family who's there for a nikah, maybe the father step forward, right? Say something, or if there's an alim in the family, like maybe the ustad who's in the family, maybe you could step forward, right, and say something, in advice, because people come together for nikah, right, and it is a very good platform for which you can da'wah, right? You can remind them, right, about the sunnah of marriage, about the beauty of marriage and everything lah, of that sort. Alright. So, and then also the giving of the mahar. And the giving of the mahar has been there since Nabi Adam's time. But it has been part of human society that when a woman is wed, right, she is given a gift. And that gift is hers. And that gift does not in any way reflect her price. Right? You're not buying her. She's not a slave girl. Right? So people like, you think my daughter so cheap, is it? You can give so little. It's not, you're not buying her. It's a gift. It's just a gift, right, that you give to your future wife. Right? For her to use her gift. However she wants to use the gift, she can use. Right? So it could be any gift that she requests. Right? It's from her request. She requests the gift. Right? What gift she wants. Right? So, you don't have to, it can be anything that she wants. Anything. Right? If she wants like a water bottle, give her a water bottle. But it's, that is what it is. Right? That is what it is. So mahar is part.
It's not part of the hantara and all the
That one, no. Unless she requests all that as a mahar lah. Like mahar, if she requests lah, if she requests around 15k, right?
That can be mahar.
If she requests, and that is hers. It won't even go to anybody at all, not even to her own parents. It's hers. Right? The antaran is all, what they prepare in our society. That is all under culture. It's not a compulsion of the religion at all. Right? The religion, the only thing that is wajib in a nikah is man, woman, qadi, witnesses. That's it. And then the man brings the mahar, the woman requests it. That's it. There's actually a hukum around it. Right? If he can't afford, right, he can actually owe her. You can owe mahar. You can you can actually owe the mahar, right? So there's an entire fiqh about it. Right? There's an entire fiqh about that. If you can't afford it, you can owe it, and you can pay in installments, right? So the whole thing, like, and if you divorce her, right, before you finish paying off the mahar, right, there are rules lah of whether have you had intercourse, no intercourse, whatever. There are rules about it, right? And then what is on you, what is not on you at this point, that kind of thing, right? So and of course, like that, so that if you pay the mahar, right, and you didn't have intercourse with her, and then you divorce her, right, you actually have a right to claim half of it, back, because basically, or you can just give it. Right, so it's all these things like that. It's all under fiqh. It's all there. Right, so antaran is not part of it. It's just basically the culture of our people.
How much a mahar is it like? Isn't it more qadar? Like if you give more mahar, or it doesn't matter?
It's on the man's side. If he wants to be generous, he can be generous to his future wife. But I know of the law in the Sharia. There are opinions whereby there is a minimum mahar. There is a minimum that you must give, right, to a woman. I think in Singapore it's like 100 100 plus, right, Singapore. Yeah, there's a minimum. Yeah, okay. Alright, I actually wanted to go into the lessons as to into why was this marriage arranged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why did Allah arrange for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to marry a much older woman, Sayyidah Khadijah, right? But we have run out of time. We actually run out of time. Can just continue. You don't live in Clementi tau. I live in Clementi. You live Bedok. I have husband at home. Okay, so we will pause here. Alright, we'll pause here. Inshallah, next week we will go into the wisdom right behind this union, right? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His ultimate wisdom, right? And then we will continue with the seerah, right? So because we paused for a while to speak about Sayyidah Khadijah, right? And then we will continue with the seerah, and then we will speak about Sayyidina Zayd, the adopted son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he came into the life of Rasulullah, and the role that he will play, right, in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we will continue from there lah. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Earlier you mentioned that Sayyidina Khadijah had worries or concern. I was afraid that her age was going to be a concern for her.
Yeah.
Talk about was there any issues or the reason why she was rejecting proposal before, and was there any questions?
There were no questions, nothing. It just that her concern. It was just her own concern. But once Nafisa went over and said Khadijah, and there was no like ribat and no nothing. It's fine. Yeah, just that she was just concerned lah. Like, and because she had concerns, like she had concern that she rejected other men, and she basically all these things lah. Right, but when she approached her own uncles, they had no issues. Like with her wanting to marry Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course she's 40 years old. So they're like, you know what, you're old enough to figure out this for yourself. Right, so you don't really have to, basically just need us to do the marriage for you lah. Right, but you're 40 years old. If you're at 40 right now and like you want to get married, your uncle or your father, marry lah. Yeah, you're old enough. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallam. الفاتحة أن الله يرزقنا العلم النافع والعمل الخالص المقبول وحسن التعاليم ودل على الهدى ويسر بدل قوم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى أرواح معالمنا مشايخنا والتقوا علينا وإلى حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.